Hello, now let's learn how to perform basic transformations in Blender. Basic transformation in Blender involves three operations. Translation, which is moving your object around the 3D space. Rotation, and scaling, which is changing the size of your object. To perform these transformations, you can do them in three ways. One, you can use the toolbar and activate the tool for each operation. Another way, you can use shortcut keys. And the last way you can perform transformations in Blender is by using the transformation panel. Let's start by learning how to perform transformation using the toolbar. If you check at the toolbar, there are icons to activate the move tool, the rotate tool, and the scale tool. And then there's another icon which can activate all the three tools together and use them together. Starting with the move tool, clicking on the move icon will activate the move gizmo. The move gizmo is represented by arrows, and the arrows are color coded. Blue representing the z-axis, green representing the y-axis, and red representing the x-axis. To move along the z-axis or to transform your object along the z-axis, left click on the blue arrow and drag your mouse up and down. To move along the y-axis, left click on the green arrow and move your mouse left and right. To move along the x-axis, left click on the red arrow and drag your mouse back and forth. If you look at the move gizmo, you'll also notice that it has these squares that are also color coded. What these squares do, they lock the axis of that color. Clicking on red will lock the x-axis. So if I now start dragging my mouse while I've left clicked on the red icon, you'll notice that the transformation will be along the z and y axes alone. Same thing for y and z axes. To move your object freely around the 3D space, you can do so by left clicking on this circle that appears at the center of your gizmo and dragging your mouse to your desired location. Now let's see how to use the rotation gizmo. The rotation gizmo is represented by circles. All circles are color coded, just like the move gizmo. To rotate around a particular axis, left click on the color of that axis and move your mouse round to rotate. This white circle is used to rotate your object as you view it on your window. And that's evident while you switch to a particular orthographic. You'll notice that in the front of orthographic, you view your object in the Y direction. So to rotate along the Y, you'll just click on the green circle. And since you are viewing it on the y-axis, the white circle will also rotate your object around the y-axis. You can also perform free rotations by clicking and dragging your mouse in between the spaces of those circles, and you'll always notice that there is a transparent circle that appears as you move your mouse pointer inside the circles. So clicking on that transparent circle and dragging will enable you to rotate your object freely. Finally is the scale gizmo. Still color coded, and it's represented by cubes. Clicking on a cube and dragging your mouse will perform your transformation aligned to that axis. The squares are used for locking, and then the circles are used for performing your scale in all the axes. You can access all the transformation gizmos or the object gizmos at once by clicking on this icon here. So you'll notice that when you click on it, you'll be able to access all the transformation gizmos at once. Another important thing to note about transformation is the amount of transformation will always be displayed at the header of the 3D viewport. If I grab my object, the amount of distance covered is going to be displayed. If I rotate my object, the angle of rotation will be displayed. Same, if I scale my object, the amount of scaling will also be displayed at the header. So that's one way to perform transformations. The other way I said is by using shortkeys. And the shortkeys used are G for translation, R for rotation, and S for scaling. Let's start by translating our object using G. So to translate an object, press on G. Pressing G will grab your object. Now when you drag your mouse, you'll be able to move your object to whichever location that you wish. To confirm your translation, simply left click. If you grab your object and then move it around your 3D space and you're not comfortable with the translation, you can cancel the translation by right clicking. Then if you grab your object by pressing G and you want to move it aligned in a particular axis, then just press G and the letter of the axis that you want to translate your object along. To translate it along the y-axis alone, press G to grab your object and then Y to translate it along the y-axis alone. Same thing applies for X and Z axes. To lock a particular axis so that you can translate your object in the other two axes, you can do so by pressing G, Shift, and the axis that you want to lock. Now you'll be able to perform your translation in only two axes. Another thing, while using shortkeys to perform transformation. You can do more precise transformation by inputting numerical values. To do so, press G, and then if I press a number, then my translation will be more precise. If you take a look at the top of my 3D viewport, you'll notice that there have been a precise translation of 4444 meters. That's because I've pressed G and 4 to perform a more precise translation. To confirm, left click. The other keys, that's R and S, work the same way as the grab tool. Pressing R will enable the rotation around your view. Pressing R twice will enable you to rotate your object freely. Then pressing R and a letter of an axis will enable you to rotate around that axis. Pressing R, Shift, and a letter of an axis will lock that axis. Same thing for scaling. Press S to activate the scale tool. To scale along a particular axis, press the letter of that axis. Finally, you can perform transformation using the transformation panel, which is visible here, or you can access it by pressing N on your keyboard. So pressing N on your keyboard will make the transformation panel appear on the right of your 3D viewport. So here you can put numerical values to perform more precise transformation. So it's very handy while you want to do precise transformation, especially while performing animations. So you can rotate around a particular axis more exact by inputting the angle of rotation. Same thing with scaling. You can input precise values and scale your object more accurately. The same concept of transformation still applies in edit mode. The only difference is that in edit mode, you can be able to transform the components of your object. For example, you can be able to move a vertex individually. Scaling and rotation is not available for vertices because it's one, unless you select more vertices, which will also enable you to select the edge connecting those vertices. And then you can now be able to rotate a particular vertex or even scale the particular vertex. You can also transform a face by scaling, rotating, or translating it. Select faces and press G. You can be able to translate the face. You can also scale the face, and you can also rotate the face just the same way you did it in object mode.